Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker. You are listening to episode 199 of the podcast, or you're joining us live on Facebook or YouTube. Today is Sunday, July 12th, and a very happy birthday to my uncle, who's a frequent listener of the show, Uncle Tommy. I think we agreed we'd have to call him Uncle Tommy, for obvious reasons. But in any case, happy birthday. Hope you're having a great birthday in quarantine. As enjoyable as it can be. But there were some great fights this weekend, so you got to enjoy those. Before we get into that, let me introduce my trusty co-pilot, all the way from the Garden State, Jeff, the Animal Wilson. Jeff, how you feel on this Sunday afternoon, my friend?
Well, I'm a little disappointed. I thought this card under-delivered.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. So I want to try and keep it as positive as possible. Obviously, there's a lot of negativity to unpack here, and we're gonna hit on all of it and try to have some fun with it, like we always do. First of all, I'll start off with a positive. I want to thank everybody who messaged me on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else and was asking if we were going to do Brawl Crawl Fight Companion for this show. You know, I always appreciate getting good feedback. Like you guys, if you like something about the show, you let me know. And, we'll try to keep doing that. If you don't like something about the show, also let me know. We'll try to not do that. I mean, obviously we can't please everybody, but it was awesome to get so many messages asking about the Fight Companion Brawl Crawl. But the reason I didn't want to do it for this one specifically is because of all the title fights. So usually we do the last 3 fights of the main card. If we did that for this one, it would have been so long. Jeff, I got to be honest with you. I fell asleep during the main event, and that's no disrespect to the athletes competing. That's because it was almost 2:00 in the morning.
Yep.
And I have a human alarm clock who has no mercy. She does not care how late the fights go, what title is on the line, how good they were, how much dad had to drink while he was watching the fights. She does not care. She woke me up this morning like clockwork at 6:45 a.m. And, we did what we do every Sunday. We went for a nice bike ride in the 112-degree heat or whatever it was today. But yeah, so thank you to everybody who messages and asks for things on the show. I say every week that I want to hear from you guys, and I mean it. And, we'll always take your requests into consideration, but I just couldn't do it for this one because I knew I wasn't going to be able to, put on the kind of performance that you've come to expect from MMA on the Rocks. Yeah. I didn't have it in me because I just looking at that fight, I was like, I'm thinking 2 out of 3 of these are going to go the distance. So that's 90 minutes of just fighting, plus all the in-between filler stuff. Like, it would have been too much and would have been too late. Probably would have gotten too intoxicated to deliver a good show. But there's that, and I have a second shout out, Jeff, before we get into the card too. My buddy Matt Temple just got back from a road trip. He drove up to Ohio, unfortunately, because he had a relative pass away. But the fortunate part about it was he got to take a road trip with his wife and their young puppy and see some cool stuff. And on the way back, they were stopping in North Carolina. I said, you have to find some Burial beer, because that was my favorite brewery when I went to Asheville about a year ago. And he found it, and then he had to go back and get more. And then I think he went back and got more. And then I was in my garage. I was sanding this step stool I made for my daughter. So I had the garage door open about this much. For those of you only listening to the audio version, it's like 1.5 feet, 2 feet. And all of a sudden I see like this pair of feet walking up to my garage. And I'm like, what? It's Saturday night. Like, who's walking up to we're all in pandemic. Like, who's walking up to my house right now? And I see a bag of beer drop down in front of my face, and he brought me some Burial beer. So shout out to Matt for the beer coming through. I enjoyed a couple of those during the fights last night. So, a few positive things to start off, and then we can get into this. But as far as the fights, Jeff, we could kind of slice this up a couple different ways. Here's where I want to start. Jiří Procházka. Jeff, did I not tell you last week?
Yeah, you called it.
This was going to be the fight.
Yeah.
And what a fight, man. That the first round was so interesting. Like, he's got such a wild style with the, moving around and like sign language and whatever he was doing in there. Like, I felt like he was like a third base coach.
Bill, I would have to watch baseball to understand that reference.
Okay, well, how about one of those sign language interpreters that's like, the mayor or somebody's giving a speech and they got the interpreter on the side, and it kind of was that kind of distraction, because sometimes you're paying more attention to that person even if you don't fucking understand sign language. But it worked, man. I feel like he put Ozdemir off of his game, because Ozdemir is a guy who's super dangerous, but he's usually very composed. And he's a great counter fighter. So he's usually good at like downloading guys' timing and then countering off of that. And he was able to catch Jiří a couple of times with that, but you saw him coming forward a lot more, which is very out of character for him. I think he knew that he had the power in his hands to put Procházka out, but he took some risks and it didn't really pay off for him. He got into a brawl with a guy who I guess happened to be a better brawler. But yeah, I told you guys last week to keep an eye on this fight. I actually thought it was going to be on the main card, but it makes sense that it wasn't. I think it should have been on the main card over the Paige VanZant Amanda Ribas fight, but we'll get into that. So give me your thoughts on Procházka here, Jeff. What do you think about this guy's debut? Light heavyweight champion from Ryzen coming over, making a big splash in the UFC.
Bill, I like the cut of this guy's jib. I like the antics. I like the chaos. I'm all for anarchy in there. So I loved it, man. It was super entertaining. VolkaNOtski kind of fell into it a little bit in the beginning. It looked like he was having a good first round. And after Jiří Procházka kind of got the jitters out, he put it on Ozdemir, man. It was a nasty one too that put him down. Mm-hmm. So huge credit to both of these guys. Ozdemir and his terrible haircut went into they went into a lot of danger here, man. Relatively unknown in the UFC. I consider myself not a casual, but somewhere as a follower of the UFC. And I had no idea who this guy was until you told me about him last week. But he put on a show, really entertaining, and it's a shame for Ozdemir. It's one of the risks we talk about is he's up there. He's ranked number 7, I think he is, and he took a big risk, and we saw that it didn't pay off. Different story in the main event, but Bill, who do you see next for Jiří Procházka here?
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to get into, because he just knocked out Ozdemir, who's I think you're right. He might be 7. Some places have him 8. So not a whole lot of people who are available in front of him. You got John Jones. Obviously, Dominic Reyes is holding out for that rematch with John Jones. You got Blachowicz and Santos. I believe they're going to fight. You got Teixeira. Teixeira has a fight lined up as well. I'm not sure with whom. Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith has a fight, doesn't he?
Not 100% sure on that.
Oh, but he just came off of that beating he took where he got his teeth knocked out. So he probably won't be back in there for a while. So you'd have to go with a number below the guy you just fought, I think. I think Nikita Krylov is a good choice. Alexander Rakic is a good choice. A lot of people saying Johnny Walker. Then you got Jimmy Crute, Misha Serkinov. Somebody with a name who's probably going to stand with him. This division is not very grappler heavy. I would keep him away from like a Corey Anderson for a while. I don't know how good of a grappler he is, but we know he's an awesome striker. But it'll be pretty easy to have him avoid grapplers. You got Jacare wandering around in this division as well. But yeah, any of those names kind of appeal to you, Jeff?
I'd like to see him fight Johnny Walker, but the whole thing would just look too weird, Bill. I actually would like to see him maybe fight like Luke Rockhold. Somebody's going to stand up with him. And Luke Rockhold, he has a thing where he's always comes in a little too cocky. So I think that that would be to Pryaska's advantage. But yeah, I think Jimmy Crute is a good one too. Jimmy Crute, he always brings it. He's pretty well rounded. So I think that would be a really good test for Pryaska.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to land on one of those guys. I think out of those, probably Krylov would be the toughest test for him.
Yeah.
Just because he's so well rounded and he would mix in some grappling. Another fun one would be Ryan Spann. That would be a fun fight too, because that guy's explosive. He's got crazy power. But the important thing is that we're talking about Pryaska now. Here's a guy who I feel like is very smart about his career. Apparently, he was offered a chance to come to the UFC sooner, and he said no. He wanted to, build up his resume a little bit more. And it paid off. He became a champion. He knocked out some notable fighters, King Mo and CB Dalloway. Guys who have experience in the big shows, and he's like, okay, I'm ready. And obviously he was, taking out Ozdemir, who fought for the title in very recent memory. As for Ozdemir, man, you got to feel for the guy. I mean, this guy had so much mystique behind him, coming in like, oh, this is the guy that Rumble Johnson brings in for sparring, because everybody's afraid to spar with Rumble, and he gives Rumble a hard time in the training room. That was kind of the story they were using to build up Ozdemir. And then he came in starching guys, like moving backwards, and it's like, oh shit, this guy's got dynamite in his hands. Fought for the title. We saw some holes in his game exposed by Cormier. With the wrestling and stuff like that. And he got knocked down the ladder a little bit, and that was a brutal knockout, man. You got to feel bad for Ozdemir there. I don't know. That was a fun one for me, Jeff. That was the highlight of the card. Where do you want to take it from here?
We can kind of go anywhere. Man, Bill, for me, fight that I was really excited about was Makwan Amirkhani versus Danny Henry, man. Amirkhani wasting no time, went in there, was pushing the pace, slapped on this it looked like an anaconda / Darce choke on Danny Henry, and he put Danny Henry out, dude. He didn't even tap. Henry just went limp. And I think Amirkhani realized that and actually said something to the ref to come and check him out. So a huge win for Amirkhani. Someone that, we've been keeping an eye on. We said it'd be interesting if Billy Quarantillo actually fought him, which I am still all for. I think that's an exciting fight to put on. But yeah, dude, I was just really impressed with Amirkhani, especially in this featherweight division where we don't really know what's next for the champ.
Yeah, and we don't really know how the champ is still the champ. That's neither here nor there. That was definitely an impressive performance from Amirkhani. Didn't get a bonus for that one. I thought it was deserving of one, but there were so many other shining moments on this card. Yeah, a lot of people confuse that Darce and anaconda. So the way you got to think of it is, with the Darce, your arm is going under the neck first and then under the armpit. And with the anaconda, it's the opposite. You're going under the armpit and then under the neck. That's the only difference between the two. And then, you have to roll a certain way, depending which one you're going for. But it was interesting the way he snaked his arms in there and locked up the position, and then used his legs to kind of pry the arm where he wanted to put it. High level, and apparently like that's his move. Like that's what he goes for. And Danny Henry, I guess his team even said they were practicing the defense of the anaconda Darce position. But I mean, when a guy just has that move and he has, it takes a certain body type. That's why like Tony Ferguson can hit those Darce chokes from odd angles. You got to have like long arms, and you got to have like the right grooves in your biceps that your your fingers just slide right into. It's not something that everybody could do. Me, I've got pretty short arms, so I have to do like a modified version of Darce chokes, and things like that. And anacondas are, I just get rolled too easily. I don't have the ability to kind of snake it in, with those lengthy arms. But yeah, definitely impressive performance by Makwan Amirkhani. Yeah, that guy's super talented. And then I'll give you what I thought should have been fight of the night. The first fight, Davey Grant and Martin Day. These guys were back and forth. It had everything. It had grappling. It had striking. Both guys got dropped at one point, and then Day just got put out with a nasty KO in the middle of the third round. But before that, these guys fought at such a crazy pace. And, they both had their moments in this fight where they looked good everywhere. You thought it was going to be, Grant's grappling against Day's striking, but, Day looked good in some of those grappling exchanges. And obviously Grant, got the better of the striking in the end. This was the fight of the night for me. Grant, I believe, did get a performance of the night bonus, so there's at least that, but I would have picked this one for fight of the night. What about you, Jeff?
Yeah, dude, this was a very exciting opening fight for this card. Dude, it was so back and forth. I had it around a piece heading into the third round, and then Davey Grant just lands. I think it was a left hand, dude, and Martin Day just dropped to the floor. Huge win for him. Very exciting fight, man. I'm telling you, Bill. For those of you watching, listening, I'm sorry, or watching, check out the prelims. Like the early prelims, they're getting better all the time, dude.
Yeah. It did kind of slow down after that fight, but then there were some good ones in there. But I guess all right, so I guess we hit on all the good stuff. Like now we gotta get into this. We gotta get into this main card here, and there's, man, I know there's going to be a lot of negativity out there today. I tried to stay off of Twitter and everything because it gets to be just like everybody kind of feeds off the hate.
Well, hold on, Bill. I got you. Before we get into the negative stuff, let me give you a positive, Bill. Bill, I wouldn't be endorsing this product if I didn't absolutely believe in it. But Bill, I ordered a mask from you guys from Marcella Gift, and Bill, I actually got the one. And for those of you listening, Bill and I didn't even talk about this before the show. I've been telling Bill all week how much I love the mask. I got text messages to prove it. So, actually, this one has an adjustable strap, which is good for me because I have this wrecking ball head. Yeah, so I have a huge head. So the regular mask, because I have a couple of those from you guys, Bill, that one, it fit me, but it was kind of pulling down on my ears and giving me some irritation. But the adjustable strap I love because I can kind of fix it to fit my white ass head. But dude, I've been playing with this. I finally found like a good spot where I really like it. And this one's a little big, which I like because I put it under my glasses. So my glasses, they don't fog up because when I put the mask over my glasses, like when I breathe out, it goes right into the lenses. So I like putting my glasses over the mask. But dude, seriously, this thing's awesome. I love the design. This is the United States one. I'm probably going to wear this to school every day when it starts up again. And I'm going to tell everybody it's a Captain America themed. So I don't get shit from anybody. But
there you go.
Seriously, love it. I got a couple for my parents as well.
Nice.
But I really like the adjustable straps.
Yeah, that came from feedback where people were saying, they love the material and everything, but it's not necessarily one size fits all, and that's, I guess, the problem people are having with the masks. And if we have to wear these things, we got to make them comfortable. So yeah, I don't talk about my job too much on this show, but yeah, I know a lot of places are mandating the masks. So my company's been making them, marcellagifts.com. If you guys want to go check that out, and we've been getting a lot of positive feedback on them, and when we get criticism, we listen, just like I do here on MMA on the Rocks. The same way I run the podcast is the same way we run the business. So yeah, we thank everybody for the feedback. And yeah, the masks are kind of a controversial thing too, right? Because people are they're uncomfortable, and people don't want to be forced to wear them, and they're like, it infringes on my freedom or whatever bullshit they're saying. But here's what I have to say about it, wearing the mask and stuff. Even if it does nothing, even if, like, say you could scientifically prove like there's no use for it, if it makes people around you feel more comfortable being around you, then put the mask on. Just put it on. It's not a big deal. You wear it at the grocery store for a little while, and otherwise, like, don't go to play. If you go to a restaurant, you don't have to wear it while you're eating. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, they've been doing it in Asia for hundreds of years. If somebody's sick, they wear a mask in public so they don't get other people sick. It's it's just a common courtesy that you would like to see. You just want to see people being good to each other, and this is like a very menial task. Anyway, rant over. I don't like to get too political on here, because then you start to get people, it's like, oh, you don't want to wear a mask, you probably believe in fascism, or like,
Hey, dude, I don't care about any of that stuff, but I figure if I'm gonna wear a mask, I might as well pick a cool design, which you guys definitely have options. But yeah, man, like I said, I think the adjustable strap is genius. I was texting Claudia about it earlier this week that I thought it was a stroke of genius.
yeah, man, she comes up with a lot of great ideas. So we'll keep on the positive vibe here. Chris Mays on a show, asking what I'm sipping on here, and I'm sticking with my tequila theme, Chris. I've been on a big tequila kick lately. It's summertime, it's hot out. Sometimes the whiskeys get a little bit heavy. It's 100 degrees out, so it's nice to have something light. But I like a little flavor to it too. So I've been into the aged tequilas. I've been talking about that, where they basically take the tequila and age it in like oak barrels and stuff, much like they do with bourbon. So you kind of get some of those oaky, vanilla chocolate flavors that you get in the bourbons, but they drink a little bit lighter. So this is a Cazadores, which there's a deer on here, so maybe it means deer. I don't know. What does that mean, Jeff?
It actually means hunters, Bill.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yep.
Well, you don't have to hunt very hard for this tequila, because it's pretty easy to find. It's a pretty good price point. A bottle of this is the Reposado, which is, I talk about this all the time. So you have your silver, which is not aged in anything. That just, comes right out of the distiller. They bottle it. Then you have the Reposado, usually aged like 6 to 12 months. So you kind of get a little bit of the flavor seeping in. And then you have the Añejo, which is aged like 12 to 18 months, somewhere in there. Some of them longer, but they usually don't go much longer than that with tequila. So this is nice because it's got some oaky tones to it, but it's real subtle. So it's a nice sipper for this hot ass Saturday here in Florida. It's so humid, Jeff, and the rain hasn't been coming for like, it's rainy season now, but like we haven't been getting the rain. But nobody told the mosquitoes that, because they're out there, Florida state bird,
Oh, dude, it's been pretty humid up here too because of that tropical storm Faye or whatever. But yesterday and Friday it was raining really hard, so it kind of cooled everything down. So, Bill, I can't say I envy you.
Yeah, it's been hot, but it's pretty easy to just stay inside. All right, so I gotta, there's a lot to unpack with this main card here. Let's start with the main event. A lot of people upset about this one, and my question is, what were you expecting? Like, you know what Kamaru Usman's gonna do. You know what he's gonna do. He's gonna go out there. He's gonna neutralize his opponent's game plan, and he's gonna hold him down, and he's gonna try and beat the fuck out of him for 25 minutes. Why that makes people so angry, I'll never know, Jeff. And I've had my theories about it. I think people are just uncomfortable with the idea of wrestling. Because if you ask a lot of fighters too, would you rather get knocked out in the first round, or would you rather be controlled and made to feel helpless for 25 minutes? A lot of fighters are going to pick getting knocked out, because then you could say like, oh, I got caught. And, you move on, rest up and move on. But when you're controlled for 25 minutes in there, it's made very clear that you don't have the skills to compete with this person who's controlling you, because they're not letting you do what you want to do. And a lot of people don't look at it that way. They look at it as, well, this is not entertaining enough for me. Because, we live in a very self-centered culture, Jeff. And that's just the way it is. And it was the same way with George St. Pierre. A lot of people were complaining about George St. Pierre at the time, but everybody watched. Everybody would watch when George St. Pierre was fighting. Now, Usman, whatever it is, he doesn't have the same like savoir-faire as George St. Pierre. He doesn't have the same charisma. I don't know what it is about him that rubs people the wrong way, but he just doesn't have like, he's not a shit talker. He's not like a big personality. He's just a guy who grabs his lunchbox and he goes to work. He's like the model of hard work paying off. And people don't want to see that. People don't want to believe that this shit takes hard work. They want to believe that you could get off the couch and throw a flying knee and end a fight in 5 seconds and become a superhero. And sometimes you can, but it doesn't always work that way. Usually it takes a lot of fucking hard work. And with Masvidal, you see him in the public and he's charismatic and he's got like this swagger to him, and he plays up the street Jesus thing and people love it. But what you're not seeing is all the grueling hours he's putting in the gym and what he's done for the last 16 years or so. He's doing all the same things Usman is doing. It's just that Usman kind of wears it that way, whereas Masvidal is able to wear it as like this entertaining character, which has really developed in the past like year and a half or so for him. He really kind of figured out how to market himself, and it's been working really well for him. But I mean, you can't deny it. Kamaru Usman is the best welterweight fighter on the planet, and maybe ever. I think we still haven't seen. I mean, he's 33 years old, undefeated in the UFC. He hasn't lost a fight since 2013. I mean, I don't know what else the guy has to do. And people say he doesn't finish enough fights. I mean, he's finished 8 fights out of 18. And it speaks to the division too, because this division is so stacked. Like, people don't get finished. Like, there was the same criticism of Tyron Woodley. He's not finishing anybody. There was the same criticism of George St. Pierre. He's not finishing people. There was the same criticism of Matt Hughes. You could go all the way to the start of this welterweight division, and it's been the same criticism, because this is like the average weight of a human man, and you happen to have like a lot of talent. And finishing fights is not something that's easy. So yeah, that was my little rant about it. But I gave Masvidal the first round. I think only one judge agreed with that, but we know these judges were trash. I don't know. What were your thoughts on this one, Jeff?
It reminds me of Frazier. because Frazier had a radio show in the show Frazier, but if that's all you watched, you wouldn't know how good of a psychiatrist he was on Cheers. Right? You only see the success. You don't know what it took to get to the top of the mountain. You didn't see the climb. All right. And Bill, one, I'm doing this one as a metaphor, and two because you challenged me to bring up Frazier whenever possible.
I
So
did.
so, but the point is, people would call into the show and stuff, but nobody saw all the times that he sat down with somebody, the months that he worked with Diane from Cheers. Um, so, Masvidal, listen, I love him. I'm a fan of his. I like his charisma. The 3 piece and soda thing is awesome. But like you said, we haven't seen the hours that he's putting in the gym. We see it with Kamaru Usman. And I think Usman, and just to go over some of the comments here, Mark Fellows, shout out to him from Australia. He says, Usman fought a smart fight, simple as that. Used his skills in the best possible way versus Masvidal's stand-up style. And Christopher Mays, all same, very similar reaction. Fight went very GSP, Fitch, Koscheck-esque, you could say, just a grind win, which I agree with both of these comments. I think that Usman went in there with the right game plan. He neutralized Masvidal's stand-up. Listen, and you got to understand something. If you thought, and I'm speaking, I don't mean you, but I mean you in general, to all the fans out there. If you thought that Masvidal was going to come in and do to Kamaru Usman what he did to Ben Askren, you don't watch UFC, or you don't watch enough of it. You don't know anything about this welterweight division. Kamaru Usman, listen, and Tyron Woodley did this too. They have their boring fights, but what do? They get results. Is that going to be pretty? No. Is everybody going to like it? No. But you know what? If Masvidal had gone in there and knocked out Usman in 5 seconds, people would have complained about that too. They would have been like, "This is a main event. Why was it only 5 seconds long?"
Yeah.
So, listen, Usman went in there. This is a game of chess, man, and Usman got the checkmate.
Yeah.
I loved what he was doing, dude. Hitting Masvidal up against the cage and just ripping up that body, making sure that Masvidal was getting tired. Bill, he knew that Masvidal didn't have the cardio to go 5 rounds with him. Masvidal stopped fighting after 3 rounds. After that, it was all Usman taking him down. The first couple of takedowns didn't really work, but then rounds 4 and 5, Masvidal was on his back for 10 minutes, man.
Yeah.
So listen, we can want whatever we want, but Usman wanted the result, and he did what he thought was best, and it worked because he's still a champ.
Yeah, for sure. I thought it was a great performance by Usman, and I think he's definitely not going to get the credit he deserved because Masvidal stepped up on 6 days notice, but there's a lot of word out there that he kind of knew all along, and he was training the whole time and bringing in wrestlers and everything, and it kind of showed because his takedown defense was excellent. He did a better job of stopping those takedowns early in the fight than Woodley did. And Woodley is a much more credentialed wrestler than both of these guys. But Usman with that pressure, man, he just breaks you. And credit to Masvidal. So even if he didn't have a full camp, which I kind of get the feeling he did, but I got to take him at his word. So he didn't have a full camp. He was still in there at the end of the fight. He still scrambled right at the end. He got up swinging and he was trying to make something happen. It just wasn't his night. But I think here's what I would do. I think you got to give Gilbert Burns the title shot now because it was taken away from him from something that was out of his control. And we do Masvidal versus Leon Edwards. I think that fight needs to happen. And then the winner of that, gets right back in there for the title. I don't really see a more fair way to do it. Because the other top guys have all been knocked down a peg. Woodley's been knocked down by Burns, and Colby Covington is still in there. He could come in and make a case. His fight with Usman was awesome. I would love to see that rematch. But yeah, I think you do that. You do that kind of little round robin for now. I think the Covington Masvidal fight is another way to go. If those guys really do have bad blood, But so you got a good storyline there. I think it's a fun thing for the division. Like a lot of people complaining about Usman, but you're probably going to want to watch his next fight because you want to see him lose. You want to see him win or you want to see him lose. Like it's the only reason you watch these things. And it's I think people want to see like these storybook fights, where Masvidal had this great year. He becomes the bad motherfucker champion, and then he gets off the couch and he comes and he wins the real championship. And that's how it happens in like a movie. But this isn't a movie. Like if you want to see something where what's going to happen, then you got to watch like pro wrestling. In this, it's one guy's skill set against another guy's skill set. And whether you like the way that looks or not is irrelevant. It's up to those guys to settle it. And Usman settled it. I mean, he was the better fighter, at least last night. And in another case with the co-main event, the better fighter did not win, in my opinion. And I think in a majority of people's opinion. So Volkanovski gets a split decision win over Max Holloway. I thought this fight was all Holloway. Obviously Volkanovski won the 5th round. Other than that, I can't say there was another decisive round for him. A lot of people are giving Max 1 through 3 and Volkanovski 4 and 5. Man, if you told me you scored 4 rounds for Holloway, I'd be okay with it. I've seen all different kinds of stats and things, which is kind of why I don't like when Anik brings up like the striking, like, oh, he's out striking him like 30-20 or whatever, because the judges don't get that information. So it kind of influences the audience. So I kind of wish they wouldn't do that. But yeah, man, I thought this fight was all Holloway, and I thought these judges took it away from him, and now he's in a position where he's 0-2 against the champion. And usually when that happens, you'll very rarely see that 3rd match. So they really robbed him of a lot there. I could see like if it was really close, giving it to the champ, but if you believe that, then Holloway shouldn't have lost the first time, because that fight was way closer than this fight. I thought Volkanovski won the first fight, but it was close. You could make an argument for Holloway, not a very good one, but you could make one. In this fight, I don't see how you make an argument that Volkanovski won this fight. I just don't. And in the post-fight press conference, Dana White was like, Max won that fight. And then he asked everybody in the media that was there. I mean, it's pandemic, so maybe there was only 3 people there, but he was like, did any of you have it for Volkanovski? And it was crickets. I don't know. He's like, all right, so nobody in the media had it for Volkanovski. He's like, you can't leave it to these judges. They're horrible. Anyway, shout out to Dave, my brother-in-law. Cheers, buddy. What do you think about this one, Jeff? This is just, I mean, there's no other way to say it really, but try to say it another way.
Yeah. So first, shout out to Dave from Dino. I've been blessed to meet him. Really good guy. I'm glad that he's married to your sister, Bill.
Meet him. You were at his wedding, Jeff.
I mean, I met him before that. I had to meet him first.
I know. I know, but you act like you met him one time. Like you know him pretty well.
Yeah. We've had dinner a few times. I was at the wedding, so hopefully that's going well.
You almost officiated the wedding.
Oh yeah, dude, I forgot. Yeah, funny story about that. Yes, I almost did. I am ordained, but in the state of New York and Las Vegas, only 2 places in the United States where you have to actually be ordained through like a church that is recognized by the state. Which it makes sense for Las Vegas because everybody gets does rush weddings there, so that made sense to me. Why New York does it, I don't know. But moving on, we got sidetracked for a second, but dude, Volkanovski winning this is like me saying that I can apply to be Pope because I'm ordained. It's happened. It can't happen. I don't know how this happened. Um, dude, going into the fifth round, I had it. I had my doubts. I had rounds 1 and 4 definitely for Max Holloway. Round 2 I gave to Volkanovski. Round 3 was pretty close. I could see it going either way, but I don't know, man. I felt like the statistics told a different story because they said that Volkanovski outstruck Max Holloway in the third round, but Holloway was making Volkanovski back up a lot, and I felt like he won the end of that round too. So I had it for Holloway. At least 3 rounds to 2. I don't know. 2 of these judges gave it to Volkanovski. I don't know why or what reason, but dude, I really felt like Max Holloway got robbed. I there are very few fights that I feel that way where somebody gets robbed because usually when it's like this, I could see it going either way. I could see an argument being made for both sides. Here, I thought Holloway had it, dude. It's a shame because, like you said, now he's 0-2 against the champ, and unless Volkanovski loses the belt in the near future, I don't see Holloway getting another crack at Volkanovski. At least
Yeah.
not at 145.
I mean, here's what I want for Holloway anyway. I want him to go back to 155. He only had the one. He only had the one fight there with Poirier, and that was a close fight, man. And since then, we've seen how good Poirier is. I mean, he won the interim title with that. And he's probably going to fight for the title again pretty soon, I would think. That win over Hooker was super impressive. And, so he lost that fight, but it was close. He went the distance with the interim champ. I think Max could really make a run at 155, and he's big enough. He's got the skills. I would like to see that. Yeah, but I feel like he deserves a rematch. I feel like maybe Dana will give it to him. And these guys, they have very different body types, very different styles. It's an awkward matchup, but one of these guys has to figure out a way to finish it because we've had 2, kind of controversial decisions, I guess. But what are you giggling about over there?
One, the fact that he brought up that I almost ordained the wedding. I don't know why. It's just a funny story. But also, Bill, at the end of this Holloway Volkanovski fight, Volkanovski had to take a knee. Holloway's over celebrating with his corner. So, to me, Max Holloway looked like the champ at the end of that fight. Volkanovski he looked like he'd been beat. But 2 people saw it differently, so that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah. I texted my uncle this right after the fight. I was like, well, Holloway won. Volkanovski deserves a rematch, but I have no desire to see it. And that's the truth. Like if Holloway had won the decision like he should have, like Volkanovski, it would have been 1 apiece and Volkanovski would have deserved the rematch. But I'm kind of tired of this fight. But since Holloway got robbed, it's like the right thing is for it to happen a third time. And I still don't want to see it, but that's still the right thing. Like I'm ready to move on. Like it's, this is a relationship that's been dead in the water for 5 months and like, you're still kind of in it. And,
Bill, we're just talking about weddings. Now we're getting into this.
Well, we gotta make analogies for people, Jeff. We don't have like all MMA fans who listen to the show. We got people from all walks of life tuning in here. So
my question is how and why. Like if you're not into MMA or beer, what are you doing listening to the show?
We just have electrifying personalities, Jeff. People like to hear us speak. It's just the way it is.
I guess that's fair. I've been told I have a voice for print, so that makes sense.
Well, no, it wouldn't make sense then.
Well, yeah, you always tell me that you have a face for radio, and I have a voice for print. What doesn't make sense?
But if you had a voice for print, then people wouldn't be tuning in to hear you. Never mind. let's talk about Petr Yan and Jose Aldo. This fight was a lot more competitive than I think a lot of people thought it was going to be. I think people pictured like what happened in the 5th round happening in the 1st round. And it was a close fight. Aldo, had some good spots in there. He brought the leg kicks back. A lot of people were excited for that. It's like going to see your favorite band and they haven't played like their hit song in a long time. And then all of a sudden they hit that first chord and everybody goes crazy. Like that's how I feel like people were reacting to the leg kicks from Aldo. But yeah, Yan looked good. I saw, I noticed some things about his game, like especially when he got on top of Aldo, it looked like he was a little lost positionally there, which would concern me if he got in there with like a really good grappler. I mean, Aldo's a black belt, but he's an old school Brazilian black belt where, it's that top position where he's going to be scary, off his back. Maybe not so much. He's probably got a few tricks, but it's not going to be like Brian Ortega on his back, but oh yeah, here's my mom is listening. See, she enjoys listening, Jeff. She doesn't know anything about MMA.
That's fair. Stu, Dave, I miss you guys. Hopefully when this is all over, I can drive up to see you.
Yeah, so I don't have much on this one, man. I mean, Yan looked good. He broke Aldo down. He had some big shots, but he took a lot of damage himself, especially from those leg kicks. He had to end up switching his stance. I think in the 2nd round, he started fighting like exclusively southpaw because he was trying to avoid those leg kicks, and they were thunderous, man. Those were like the Aldo leg kicks of old. But yeah, what did you think about this one, Jeff?
Bill, I enjoyed this fight. It was very back and forth, but dude, credit to Petr Yan. He's a tough dude, man. Aldo was throwing those leg kicks. The very first one put him on his butt. So
yeah,
they were for real, man. Jose Aldo leg kicks, you're gonna be limping for a few days. And dude, Petr Yan, he dug deep. After that 3rd round, I thought he was going to slow down a little bit because Aldo's, he's been in the deep water many, many times. Petr Yan, not so much, but he showed his cardio, he showed his toughness, and credit to Jose Aldo as well, man. I think no matter what happens, Aldo's a legend. He's got his spot already in the Hall of Fame, but I think it's just Petr Yan's time. He's been tearing up this bantamweight division. I thought it was a little too soon for him to get a shot at the title, but he proved me wrong. So now we got to see what's next for him. I certainly hope it's Aljamain Sterling after his fight with Cody
Sandhagen.
Yeah. So
Corey Sandhagen, sorry.
Yeah. So hopefully it's Aljo who gets the next crack at that belt. But I'm excited, man. This bantamweight division, now it's starting to take shape a little bit, and it's going to be a fun ride in the future for sure.
Yeah. And shout out to my beautiful wife as well, who's listening to the show and from downstairs and watching our child so that I can do this show. She's probably watching like, hurry up, she's driving me crazy.
Bill, you know where your bread is buttered, and I love it.
Yeah. So what I tweeted at the beginning of this fight was, this is the interim fight to see who Aljamain Sterling is going to fight for the undisputed championship, and that's what I really believe. I think. You had Aldo coming off a loss, and Yan, who had only fought one top contender in Jimmy Rivera. So I mean, I think Sterling is a lot more battle tested and probably a lot more deserving, and probably would have been that submission in that position if it wasn't for the setback with the Marlon Moraes fight. My wife just informed us that she had to bribe Ariana with chocolate so she would stop banging on the door while I'm recording.
Yeah, I heard the banging on the door, but I didn't want to say anything.
Yeah, I was gonna mute the microphone, but then I was like, that wouldn't be organic. We gotta adapt to our environment here, Jeff. I mean, one day she's gonna figure out how to break the door down, and with the terrible two tantrums we've been seeing lately, it's probably not too far off. The kid is freakishly strong as well. In any case,
It's from Latino roots, man.
it could be. So speaking of Latino roots, I have to tell this story. So my in-laws are from Peru, right? They were both born there and spent a lot of their youth there and came here and made their lives in America. And the highlight of my weekend, Jeff, was listening to my wife explain to them what being a Karen means. They were FaceTiming with the baby, right? And Claudia casually says, hey, you guys know what a Karen is yet?
Oh man.
And my father-in-law goes, oh, that's the white woman who is pretending to be attacked by a black man.
Oh man.
Like, well, yeah, pretty much. Like, I mean, that's just one example, but yeah, that made my weekend. It was so funny, but like not intentionally funny.
Bill, I can picture him saying it too, which makes me realize how many of your family members I've actually met.
I know this is becoming like a show about my family, and actually my uncle, happy birthday again, is on here. He said, "What's up with Dana after the fight?" Someone asked him if this means Aldo gets the shot at Yan, and Dana said, "Who?" Maybe he misheard. I didn't hear that clip. Maybe he thought they said Aldo and they said Aljo.
I feel like Dana's kind of going deaf because he'll ask people to repeat the question a lot. So I think that might have just been like something got lost in translation. I don't think Dana meant to disrespect Aljo like that.
Yeah, but there's also, there's a lot that goes into the decisions here. Like Yan found himself in this position because he represents a certain market in the world that the UFC is trying really hard to build more of a fan base in, that Russian market. So if they can get the belt around the waist of some Russian fighters, then that helps them accomplish, some more of their goals for becoming more of a global company. And look, there may be some shady back end stuff going on with like managers of other fighters, like a Cody Garbrandt or something like that. Or maybe, Aljamain Sterling said something at some point that pissed Dana White off, and he's gonna, keep him on the bench, or there may be some kind of vendetta there. I don't know the real answer. We can speculate on it, but yeah, I mean, it's $1 billion company, and they have to make decisions to keep it $1 billion company, and sometimes that ends up screwing over the good people in this sport, like an Aljamain Sterling, who is so deserving of a title shot. It's not even funny. Like he should have been fighting for this title when it was vacated. I thought Sterling versus Sandhagen was more deserving of a title shot than this fight. Again, you had Aldo coming off of a loss, and you had Yan, who had only beaten one contender. And that fight was below on the card, Cody Garbrandt fighting a Sunsao. So you got that kind of made me wonder too, like what's going to happen after this? If Garbrandt and a Sunsao are above Sterling and Sandhagen, that kind of says, that kind of speaks to what's next. And while the fans and everybody with any sense of logic is like Aljamain Sterling is deserving of the next title shot, I mean, you can't ignore the fact that Garbrandt and a Sunsao were ahead of him on the last card. So I don't know. We got to see how that one plays off. I think a lot of people are going to be outraged, and then still watch whatever happens anyway because there's no other sports going on. But Rose Namajunas getting a split decision victory over Jessica Andrade. I don't know why this was a split decision. This was very cut and dry for me. I know that Namajunas looked worse for wear at the end of this fight, and if you're going by like the old Pride rules, where the last round is worth more, because the thought behind that was, if it were like an actual street fight, the person who's winning at the end of the fight would, if it was like a fight to the death, that person would probably win. And that's probably what you saw here. If this fight went on another round or two, Andrade might have finished Namajunas, but the scoring system we have is you score it by round. Namajunas won the first round. She won the second round very convincingly. And then Andrade won the third round very convincingly. Namajunas had a big mouse under her eye and possibly a broken nose. I mean, if you want to give Andrade a 10-8 in that third and call it a draw, I could see that argument maybe. But it wasn't that dominant of a round. There were just like some big shots that did a lot of damage. And, some people see the damage and they're like, how did she lose? And it's like, you got to explain basic math. It's like, well, it was 2-1. This is how you score these things. Like 2 is more than 1. And you got to break it down that way. I can't put it more simply than that. So Namajunas wins. She was the right person to win. I don't know what's up with that judge who gave it to Andrade. But here we are. Maybe we need to see this one a third time, because now it's 1-1.
Oh yeah, that's right. It is 1-1. I forgot Andrade won the first one. Know why, Bill? Because Rose won last night. That's why I forgot. Listen, the fact of the matter is, yes, she got beat up in that third round, but that's one round. She won the first two pretty convincingly, man. She was piecing up Jessica Andrade in those first 2 rounds, doing a good job of keeping that distance, and just staying away from Andrade. She learned her lesson from that first fight. Mm-hmm. So yeah, credit to Rose Namajunas for getting that one back, because like we saw, that doesn't always happen. Depends on who's judging. But credit to Rose Namajunas. I think she went in there with the right game plan. The jab was working really well for her. There were some nice combinations that she was throwing. All credit to Pat Barry, who's her kickboxing coach. So yeah, did she look a little worse for wear? Yes, but like you said, that was just one round. And Bill, I think we can talk about one of my favorite fighters, Amanda Ribas, on Paige VanZant.
Amanda Ribas is 2-0 against Instagram models, Jeff.
Who was the first one? Who was the last one? Was it Pearl Gonzalez?
No, Mackenzie Dern. Pearl Gonzalez is not in the UFC.
She's not?
No. I believe she's an Invicta.
Oh. Well, she posts an awful lot like she's in the UFC. Maybe that's why I'm just used to seeing her everywhere. Whatever. But
if I didn't know fighting, I wouldn't even know she was a fighter. If you just look at her social media.
I mean, to be fair, I only know her from her social media. So I didn't even know she was a fighter until a couple weeks ago.
Well, maybe that's why you thought she was in the UFC. I'm going to double check that right now. But so Amanda Ribas, man, this girl, I feel like, is just picking up steam right now. Yeah. She's well-rounded. She submitted Paige VanZant, which, a lot of people want to hate on Paige VanZant. Like, she's a talented fighter, and let's be honest, they want to hate on her for good reason, because she's like, does a lot of cringy stuff, like dancing videos with her husband. And like, I accidentally see it sometimes. I'm like, oh, why are they doing this? And then she goes and talks badly about the company that she works for, saying, oh, I make more money doing Instagram than I do fighting in the UFC. It's like, nobody's twisting your arm except for Amanda Ribas.
Oh man.
You don't have to be here.
That joke was so bad, but it was so good, man. Oh man.
I gotta work some dad humor in. Yeah, so Pearl Gonzalez is in Invicta. She lost her last fight, which was in February. But yeah, and I have no problem with these female fighters. Some people seem to have a problem with them, posting all these pictures, all these, sexually explicit pictures on their social media. I don't think there's any problem with that at all. I think a lot of male fighters kind of sexualize their persona to get themselves out there, and nobody really has a problem with that. So if that's what it takes to get your name out there, we have fighters like creating characters like Colby Covington and Chael Sonnen to get their name out there. If these female fighters think it's the best thing to show off their assets, pun intended, on their social media channels to get themselves a little bit more recognition so people want to see them fight, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Hey, credit to you. You have to use the tools that you have. So like if you have a nice ass, then use it to get yourself some fights. Because people will see that and say, oh wow, this person's a fighter, I want to watch. And then you work if you're actually a good fighter, you work your way up, and it goes from there. That being said, like you can't talk all this shit about the company you work for and then take so much time off with injuries and this and that, and the whole time you're out you're complaining about how much you get paid when you do get in there and fight, and then you get finished. And Dana White said at the press conference, like, I like Paige, but from all the stuff she's been saying and all the time she's been taking off, like she should probably go explore free agency, which is, I imagine, what she's going to do. She's probably going to end up in Bellator where her husband fights and probably make a lot of money there and probably do pretty well. But the story of this has to be Amanda Ribas, because man, she was the biggest favorite on the card, and she showed why, because she smoked Paige VanZant, submitting her in 2 minutes, 21 seconds with a really nice armbar. And she's undefeated in the UFC. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row. And it's not like she's in there with nobodies. Paige VanZant is very tough, very hard to finish. Randa Marcos, she beat, and Mackenzie Dern, and then Emily Whitmire in her UFC debut. So, yeah, I gotta imagine she's like 1 or 2 away from a title shot here at 125. But that title shot at 125 is a tall order, Jeff. Yeah. I mean, after her performance last night, you could say, like, if it was anybody but Shevchenko, you could say, like, all right, maybe throw her in there for the title, but there's nobody to fight Shevchenko right now. Ribas looked really good, but I would like to see 1 or 2 more from her. What are your thoughts?
Dude, I agree with you 100%. I'd like to see Ribas get a little bit more experience, but man, I don't know if who in this women's flyweight division is in a rush to get a title shot, man. Valentina Shevchenko is a scary, scary fighter. And I'm saying in any weight class, men or women. But, dude, let's not take anything away from Amanda Ribas here. She, went in there, did her job, put on a good show. And excuse me, and Bill, how much of this would you say maybe Paige VanZant underestimated Ribas a little bit? And you got to feel for Paige VanZant because, and I'm just trying to put myself in her shoes here. That arm, she's had a couple of arm surgeries. And, to get caught in an armbar, it must be a little traumatizing. Me personally, I would have tapped a lot sooner to that armbar, the way the angles were coming in.
Yeah, it was a tough one, man, because she had the arms tied up and yeah, it was a while ago that she injured that arm. I forget if was it the Jessica Rose Clark fight where she was in like a really bad armbar and wouldn't tap. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, she's lost 3 of her last 4 in the UFC, and her contract is up, and she's said very publicly that she's unhappy with being in the UFC. So I imagine she's not going to stay in the UFC because they're probably going to send her some low ball deal that's less money than she was even making now. I like how much can you say you're worth in a certain industry when you've lost 3 of your last 4 fights?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think her best option, and speaking monetarily, is probably to go to Bellator. Where she can have her sponsors, where she's not going to be locked down by the Reebok deal, which is soon to become the Venom deal, Bill. Which
Yeah,
I do want to get into in a minute, but more power to Paige VanZant. I want everybody to be happy. So if she's happier with Bellator and how much she'd be making there, good for her. Maybe her and her husband could be on the same fight card. People know him as Mr. VanZant, but he's not a bad fighter either. We were talking about when he beat Richie Martinez. At Submission Underground. But yeah, more power to Paige VanZant, dude. I'm a fan of hers, not just because of the way she looks. I don't mind that she shows some skin online. But Bill, as much as she shows her assets, like you say, I also like when she shows the pictures of her surgery. They're gnarly. You can see bones and tendons, which I think is pretty cool. So
yeah. Yeah, and she's super tough. The fight with Rose Namajunas really showed her toughness. I mean, she took a beating from Rose in that fight, and I think that was probably her best performance in that fight. I mean, just to show like the grit and the heart that she has. But yeah, Austin Vanderford, her husband, I feel like probably should be in the UFC more. Like, is more deserving to be in the UFC than she is. Like, he's a tough dude. He's over there in Bellator right now. He was on the Contender Series and did well there, but they didn't want to give him a shot. I think they didn't like the whole husband-wife dynamic, like, weird thing. And if they were doing those creepy dance videos at that time, then they probably wouldn't have even put him on a Contender Series.
Bill, I don't even have a problem with the weird videos. I don't mind the husband-wife thing, but for the love of everything, I wish he would do something about that neck tattoo. Just like wear a scarf or something.
I'm fine with the tattoo, Jeff. It's like, but having the neck tattoo and then doing like choreographed like Backstreet Boys dancing with your wife, like that's strange to me. I see the neck tattoo and I'm like, okay, this guy's a fighter. I see the dancing videos and I'm like, this guy's weird. Why is he dancing like that? What's he doing? But in any case, I want to put a bow on this card, Jeff. But so I'll give you a couple of things we didn't touch on. Muslim Salikov getting the split decision victory over Elizu dos Santos. So, a lot of spinning kicks from both guys in this one. Pretty back and forth, very exciting fight. Amir Khani, we already talked about. Leonardo Santos, unanimous decision over Roman Bogatov. Oh, this is a fight I wanted to talk about, Jeff, because this was so I say time after time, Mark Goddard is the worst referee in MMA. I don't think he should be allowed to referee anymore. And this fight is a great example of it because this fight should have been stopped in the second round when Bogatov was almost dead in the cage. And Santos basically tired himself out punching Bogatov in the head with about 130 unanswered blows. Then you go into the third round where it never should have been. Dos Santos takes 2 low blows and then takes an illegal knee to the head. And he still won the fight, but you're talking about potential permanent injuries that he never should have faced because this fight should have been stopped in the second round. And it was absurd that it went on that long. And then, Goddard took 2 points away, but all right. That's like that's after the fact. Like you should have done something sooner. I think the low blows, like maybe you got to take a point away for the first one. And he didn't even take it for the second one. He just gave him a warning. It's like he did the same thing again, and you let him get away with it. And then the illegal knee, yeah, he took 2 points away, but like by that point, he should have already taken a point away and then taken 2 points for the illegal knee. I'm just like really disappointed with Mark Goddard again. And this keeps coming up. And every time it comes up, I will say we need a governing body that oversees the judges, the athletic commission, and the referees. And they're all under the same umbrella of the athletic commissions because there's no repercussions. Shit like this happens again and again, and the bad judging again and again. And there's nothing you can do about it. You can appeal a decision, but they'll never overturn an appeal because then that kind of goes against their own employees, the judges. They'll never overturn a referee's decision either for the same reason. So you need to have like a governing body that says, okay, this was wrong and we need to fix it. But until something like that is in place, we're going to have to deal with these frustrations. And, that's something I wanted to have a kind of a mini rant about. And I feel like I'm constantly disappointed with Mark Goddard for the decisions that he's making in there and putting these guys at risk. Santos took a lot of unnecessary damage, to both of his heads.
I can't say I disagree with you, man. Especially that second round, dude. What's his name? Bogatov kind of went limp for a second. It was like he went out and then like came back because he was kind of wrestling Santos, but he wasn't really. He was kind of just on top of him. Man, dude, this fight was all over the place. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, man. I mean, the resume is not looking good for Mark Goddard here.
Yeah.
We've had issues like this in the past, and I agree with you, Bill. I think we need some governing body because not only does that knee in some places that would not have been illegal because we don't all follow the unified rules. We need some type of governing body, man. And if I hate to get into this, but education has the same problem where like New Jersey's standards for learning are different from New York's. Mm-hmm. They're different from Texas. So that's why education is all over the place. But without getting into that too much, we're having the same problem in the UFC. And at least, in the UFC, something can be done about it. If, like you said, we have this governing body to oversee judges and refs and athletic commissions. And then we won't run into two judges giving it to Volkanovski when he only won 2 rounds.
Yeah. If that.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we could do a whole episode on this, and I've been talking about this for years. I think Josh Barnett even mentioned it on Joe Rogan's podcast last week, how there needs to be some kind of, and he's the only other person I've heard say it besides myself. And I've been saying this for years, Jeff. You know this because I've been mostly saying it to you. You hear it. I'm like a broken record to you, but we have a lot of different people who come and go as listeners of the show. And in any case, so Bogatov is a piece of shit because he lands the illegal knee. He lands it again. I'm talking about the knees to the groin. And then, it throws one to the head. And it's like, come on, dude, you're a piece of shit. The other piece of shit here is Rolian Paiva, which they kept saying Paiva, but I read his name as Paiva. But I'm probably wrong on that because I know John Anik is the expert here, so I'll go with what he said. Paiva. This dude misses weight by 3 pounds, lands 2 low blows in the fight that he's winning. And the second one seemed to be intentional. And then he's celebrating at the end. Like, what kind of piece of shit are you? Like, first of all, make weight. Second of all, if you miss weight, follow the rules while you're in there. Like, you're already, like, That's something else that we could go on and on about. Like, I think missing weight should result in a point deduction. It should impact the fight somehow, because obviously you're making a decision to show up overweight and pay the fine, so you can go in there and win the fight. But if you make it so that it affects your ability to win the fight in terms of like a point deduction or even 2 points deduction, you're not going to do that. Say for like every 3 pounds, it's a point, so if you're 4 pounds over, it's 2 points. So you're already starting out in the hole, because you're starting with an advantage by being bigger than the other person. That's the whole reason we have weight classes. So you need to abide by them. All right, rant over. UFC 251. Overall, I think a lot of people were disappointed because at the end, we had the horrible decision in the Volkanovski fight, and then a lot of people were bored with the main event when they were expecting like a storybook ending. But there were a lot of positives here. So I'll just reiterate: Amanda Ribas for sure. Yuri Prohaska, probably the best story coming out of this. Makwan Amirkhani, I mean, who's not looking forward to that guy's next fight? And Davy Grant. Those were all huge positives from this card. But I want to put a bow on this one because we're already like way over this 1 hour mark. I want to talk about this card next week. That's also going to be at Yas Island in Abu Dhabi. Rough life for Dana White. I guess he's going to have to stay on a private island in Abu Dhabi in these gorgeous hotel rooms for as long as they keep doing this. This is a fun main event here, Jeff. UFC on ESPN 13, Calvin Kattar and Dan Ige. This is going to be a really fun one. These are two tough, scrappy guys that just go after it. They go for the finish nonstop, both of them. Ige coming off of, kind of a controversial decision win in his last fight over, was it Barboza who moved down?
Yeah, for Dan Ige?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I think Edson Barboza. So he got the unanimous decision win. A lot of people thought it was a robbery, but nonetheless, here we are. Calvin Kattar, man, this guy's the real deal. This is whoever wins this one, there's going to be a lot of eyes on this because there's no other sporting events going on. Maybe a lot of people don't know who either of these guys are, but they will after Saturday night. It's a really fun main event, and then we got a super stacked card here with a lot of really fun fights. But I'll get into those in a minute. Give me your thoughts on this main event here, Jeff.
Bill, I'm excited for the main event. However, I was more excited for what was supposed to be the co-main event of this fight, Bill, which was supposed to be Pedro Munoz versus Frankie Edgar at bantamweight. However, they scrapped it because
they moved it to UFC 252.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh,
I think they just announced that yesterday. Why did they scrap it? I remember that happened, but
I believe somebody in Munoz camp tested positive for COVID-19, so just to be safe, they moved it. But Bill, now that I know that it's back on later in the year, I'm excited again. So, Calvin Kattar versus Dan Ige, dude. This one, dude, I don't see this one going to the judges at all, man. Both of these guys bring it every time. Calvin Kattar loves to push the pace. He hits hard. All right, I know we say that about a lot of guys, but Calvin Kattar, he has power in both of his hands. He's got finishing power. But Dan Ige, he's not going to go down easy either. Some people thought that the fight with Barboza was a robbery. I could have seen it going either way. So, Dan Ige is a tough dude as well. So that's a really exciting fight. Excuse me. We have a couple of other exciting fights on here as well. Tim Elliott versus Ryan Benoit. Jimmy Rivera's on here. But yeah, Bill, I think that Jared Gordon's fighting versus Chris Fishgold. That'll be a good fight. So, Bill, this fight card looks a little bit shorter than this week's card, but should be just as exciting. And Bill, this card is on Wednesday. Am I right? I'm saying that?
Oh yeah. July 15th. You're right. That is Wednesday. I'm glad you said that because I did not even put that together. Yeah, the Jimmy Rivera Cody Stamann fight will be awesome. Credit to Cody Stamann, man, getting in there the week after his brother tragically passed away, winning a fight, and then getting right back in there against a stud like Jimmy Rivera, who's one of the top guys in this bantamweight division. Abdul Razak Al Hassan is on this fight, 10-1. Welterweight, 10-1 with 10 knockouts. Mind you, coming off that 40-second knockout of Nico Price in his last fight. So that's definitely one to watch. He's fighting a guy, Munir Lazzez, who is 9-1 with 8 knockouts. So this is going to be a fun one. He's making his UFC debut. He's coming off of knockout wins in his last 2 fights. So that's my sleeper fight, Jeff. That's my pick for the one to watch on this fight. Abdul Razak Al Hassan and Munir Lazzez. Check that one out for sure. But then some fun ones, like you said, Jared Gordon and Chris Fishgold on the prelims. That'll be a really good one. 2 well-rounded guys. And then another one to keep an eye on, Jack Shore, grappling-based fighter, but very well-rounded, 12-0. He comes from Wales. It's the second fight on the card against Aaron Phillips, who is a very well-rounded fighter as well. So those are the ones I'm telling you guys to keep an eye on. Usually have a pretty good feel for these things, Jeff. So it's gonna be a fun night, Wednesday night. Maybe we do a midweek podcast for this one, Jeff.
Sounds like a plan to me. But Bill, Abdul Razak Al Hassan versus Munir Lazzez. Dude, you're calling it your sleeper fight. I think someone's going to sleep in this fight, dude.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I mean.
Dude, yeah, that's going to be fun, and that's going to start. It looks like it's going to be the opener for the main card. I hope that whoever's warming up is like on standby, because I think that's going to be a very short fight.
Yeah. And then in case we don't do a midweek card, we got Saturday night UFC Fight Night 172. The headline is supposed to be Davison Figueiredo and Joseph Benavidez for the vacant flyweight title, but Figueiredo tested positive for COVID-19, but they still, I guess then he tested negative. I don't know what's going on there. They still flew him to Abu Dhabi. They have him there. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if they'll have a replacement, but Jeff, if they cancel that fight and the co-main event becomes the main event, we got Kelvin Gastelum versus Jack Hermanson.
Ooh, hold on, Bill. Hold on. Just make that the main event. I don't even care about Figueiredo versus Benavidez. Figueiredo's probably not going to make weight anyway. Just versus Kelvin Gastelum. You don't even need to put a title on the line. That could be the main event, dude.
Yeah. And we got some fun fights on this card too, Jeff. We got Mark DeCasey is fighting Rafael Fiziev. I'm not familiar with him, but DeCasey is very exciting. Alexander Pantoja against the undefeated Askar Askarov. A few undefeated fighters on this card as well. Joe Duffy coming back. We haven't seen him in a while. He's going to be fighting Joel Alvarez. Brett Johns, the Pikey, against the 9-1 Montel Jackson. That's way down on the prelims. And then we got Sergey Spivak, who's an exciting fighter, against the undefeated Carlos Felipe. So this is a fun card too, Jeff. We got a lot of fun MMA action to look forward to on Wednesday and Saturday nights.
Yeah, dude. I'm still disappointed that Fight Island is not man-made, but the fights that are going to be on it are going to be fantastic, man. That Saturday card is looking really, really good.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm probably most looking forward to the Kelvin Gastelum, Jack Hermanson. I don't know why more people aren't talking about that, but man, for Wednesday night, that Al Hassan fight is going to be so good. I mean, 19 knockouts between the two of them. That's going to be an awesome one. Anyway, I hear my daughter screaming. bloody murder downstairs. So I don't know if the microphone's picking that up or not, but that's my cue to call it a show. Maybe we'll be back for for a minute.
Oh, I hear it. Yep, there it is.
Yep. So there we have it. We're gonna have to wrap it up there. The long one this week. We had a lot to talk about. We got into a lot. I think we kept it mostly positive, Jeff, when there's a lot of negativity out there. That's what we try to do. Hope everybody continues to be good to each other out there. I know I don't have to tell that to anybody listening to this show, but, make sure you're spreading that message. Just be good to each other out there because there's a lot of bad shit going on. And, we need to take care of each other. We're all in this together. All right. So, I don't know when we'll be back. Maybe we'll do a Wednesday thing. Maybe we'll be back next Sunday. I don't know. You guys let me know. If you really want to hear us come on Wednesday night and do the fights live, then keep sending us those messages and ask us to do it live. And, maybe you can convince us. It doesn't take a whole lot to convince me to pour a drink and talk to my buddy, the Animal, over here. If you want to talk to Jeff, the Animal Wilson, you can do so on Twitter and Instagram at Animal_Wilson. You guys know how to get a hold of me. It's at MMA on the Rocks everywhere on social media. If you guys want an MMA on the Rocks t-shirt, just check out the link that's posted in my Instagram bio or pinned. It's the top tweet pinned on my Twitter. A lot of people have been ordering shirts, and we definitely appreciate it. You guys asked for it for a long time. Jeff, we're coming up on 4 years of this show. I think it's this week is 4 years. So, what better way to celebrate than do like 3 shows? We do the 200th episode is a brawl crawl. Yeah, my uncle says we should do it live. All right. I'm
all for it. Let's do it.
That's it. That's all we needed. We just needed Tommy to tell us on his birthday. For his birthday, all he wants is for a live MMA on the Rock show Wednesday. So we're going to do it. All right. I still hear the kids screaming downstairs. I hope my wife is still alive when I find her. In any case, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks for sharing the episode. Thanks for leaving reviews. Thanks for all your feedback. Thanks for buying t-shirts. Thank you for everything. That's all we got. Until next time. Cheers, everybody. Goodbye.